Hi, Zambia has opted to move out of 42.5 billion Eurobond payment, becoming the first African nation to default on its debt since the coronavirus pandemic. In fact, Zambia has been facing financial difficulties, but coronavirus pandemic has further aggravated the issue. It has put additional burden on health services and a depressed economic activity, and the government has said that it is the cause of this situation. In fact, the government has also said that it is not only Zambia but other countries who is having debt distress. But is COVID pandemic the only reason for such situation in Zambia? But before going further, let us look at this chart here. This chart shows the COVID-19 shock that has hammered emerging economies. You can see the light blue color. These are the countries who had debts in distressed territory, and the blue color up here are the ones who had defaults and debts restructured from 2001 to 2020. Now, if you see 2008 and 2009, there was a peak in between, but that is due to recession, which we all know. Now, if you look here at 2020, it is higher. Nearly 20 countries have defaulted, and many of them have restructured their debt or in distressed category or are in the process of restructuring. But if we look at Zambia, is COVID the only reason as claimed by the government? It is not true. Partially it can be, but there are several other reasons to it. Even before the coronavirus pandemic brought global economic slowdown, Zambia was mounted with debt. The Eurobond is not only the only debt. Zambia is mounted with other debts amounting to $12 billion. In fact, Zambia's currency kwacha has tumbled nearly a third since the beginning of the year. Critics have also said about President Edgar Lungu's poor economic management, and there are instances of severe corruption that has been reported in recent years, which has led to the situation. Zambia, in any case, was a case study of how not to run an economy. The impact of the global economic crisis on Zambia has been such that the minerals export prices fell sharply because of the deep recession in the US and Europe and its after effects on China and other parts of Asia. Due to this, the currency of Zambia, kwacha, has fallen down sharply, nearly by 1/3. Zambia's external debt has also been increasing drastically since 2012, which is around $12 billion as of today. One of the world's top producers of copper, Zambia, has now got a reputation of financial unreliability due to non-payment of the Eurobonds. Appetite for debts has grown tremendously in Africa in the last couple of years, where governments have been taking funds mainly from the Chinese authorities and spending heavily on all public infrastructure, roads, highways, hospitals, built with Chinese expertise. And in turn, China has been keen in exploiting the natural resources of Africa, especially Zambia. The amount of high spending that is done in Zambia has also been tainted by corruption in recent years. The government has also requested all the creditors and bondholders to defer payments till April, as it struggled with the dual burden of fighting the pandemic and the economic crisis. But the creditors have rejected the request. Now, Zambia's economy is dependent upon mining, and Zambia is one is the top copper producers in the world. Nearly 76% of its copper is being exported, and its main revenue comes from this mineral alone, and that is why it is suffering from the Dutch disease. The Dutch disease means that the company is overly dependent upon one item for exports, and it's a threat to the economy going forward. The name Dutch disease is because Netherlands earlier were dependent upon oil only as a revenue for their economy, and because of that Netherlands economy went into depression. The same thing is what is happening to Zambia today. At a macroeconomic level, the country is also suffering from the economic policies and the taxation that is imposed on the mining from the Lungu administration policies. Mining companies are not getting their VAT refunds, and this is threatening their livelihoods, coupled with interference from the state. Other challenges include inconsistent policies, pervasive corruption, and high lending rates. The country's debt to GDP rose to 100%, having risen from 60% in 2017. The debt to GDP ratio is expected to continue rising as the country faces low economic growth. Zambia's default on the EU bondholders' commitments will spell further difficulties for the country's fiscal and borrowing standing. However, focusing on the Zambia debt crisis in isolation would be neglectful. In fact, it is part of a much bigger malady facing many of the sub-Saharan African countries. African countries have been sinking in sovereign debt since the financial crisis of 2008. Zambia illustrates some of the physical challenges the continent has been facing, some of the systemic issues around African debt, including low domestic savings, low or non-existent revenue collection, illicit financial flows, exchange rate volatility, and excessive corruption. The World Bank and IMF have announced some relief measures, including freeing up billions of dollars in debts, payments, and some African countries have already taken more loans from those institutions. But debt-related anxiety will deepen as time unwinds. The Zambian authorities have already approached the multilateral financial institutions and for further loans and deferring their payments, but IMF and the World Bank have made it very clear that the support would depend on Zambia taking steps to make sure that its debt was sustainable. The bodies have also asked Zambia to declare all its debt before any financial lifeline can be given to Zambia. Zambia now is at a point where it has to use IMF loans to pay the Chinese debt, a classic example of a debt trap, taking money from X, borrowing money from X, and paying it to Y. Having said that, IMF is likely to demand greater progress on Zambia's liability management before offering any bailout program. Thank you.